What's up everybody, this is Master Ian Gamer. Today I wanted to talk about the new changes for Mercy and D.Va, and not only discuss how we're going to start seeing them be played from now on, but also explain why Blizzard decided to change these heroes in the first place. Despite how we may feel one way or another about them, these changes are going to be really good for the game overall. So let's take a look at why these heroes got reworked. Let's start off with Mercy. The two big changes for her are the Resurrect ability and Valkyrie ultimate. The reason that Blizzard made these changes mainly had to do with Resurrect as an ultimate, and how regularly it was seen as being unfun. The change was also partially an effort to adjust Mercy's notoriously simple playstyle, but I'll touch on that more a little later. First, I want to focus on Resurrect. The reason this ultimate ability was seen as unfun was because it had the power to take all the hard work of a coordinated team push and reverse it. While the saving power of this ultimate often felt pretty good for the team that gets resurrected, it could be extremely frustrating for the enemy. Now, a lot of people stand on either side of this argument. Many are glad that the days of huge reses are behind us, but many others say that there is no problem with the ult in the first place. Besides, oftentimes it could take extremely good situational awareness and game sense in order to pull off a huge res. However, one blatant downside to the ability to revive all dead allies within a set radius was it promoted the whole die on point mentality. Even though dying while defending the objective is generally the most appropriate way to go down, the potential for a huge res encouraged Mercy to let her teammates die, simply so she could either surprise the enemy with their return or gain those precious fire points. Regardless, deliberately letting your teammates die was a clear problem. However, Resurrect is such a defining aspect of Mercy as a character that they couldn't possibly do away with it entirely. Blizzard most likely spent a long time trying to come up with a solution for this. The answer they came up with, at least on paper, doesn't even sound very good. Being able to resurrect a teammate as a standard ability instead of an ultimate seems at first to be overpowered. However, in practice, the ability has so far shown to be fairly balanced, especially considering its 30-second cooldown. It perhaps proves most useful at the beginning of a fight. Normally, whichever team gets the first pick has a huge advantage by making it a 5v6. But now that Mercy can immediately resurrect the first team member who falls, it seems that whichever side has a Mercy will stand at an overall advantage in this regard. Again, it's something that may be overpowered, but it will take some time before we know for sure. More importantly though, how does this affect the fun aspect of it? Well, for starters, there's no longer any advantage to having multiple teammates die at the same time or place. Thus, this strongly encourages Mercy to keep everyone alive at all times, since, because of the long cooldown, Resurrect is an ability which you'll want to use as sparingly as possible. This makes playing her all the more engaging. Constantly keeping her teammates alive encourages more active gameplay for Mercy at every given moment, and eliminates the notorious hide and then res strategy, which had become incredibly prominent across all levels of play. Also, she can't resurrect her entire team at once anymore, meaning that those 5 kills your team worked so hard for won't be reversed by just the press of a button. Furthermore, this creates more room for skill while playing Mercy. Since the original Resurrect ultimate already had game sense potential when it came to knowing when the best time was to use it, this expands on that aspect even more by making the ability not only usable more frequently, but also less powerful when used. This means managing it wisely is more important, and it no longer can serve as a simple catch-all solution when multiple teammates are dead. Likewise, Mercy's new Valkyrie ultimate fulfills the same purpose. While it's likely that Valkyrie only exists, so she would have an ultimate still after the change to Resurrect, it also further expands Mercy's level of engagement and skill potential as a hero. While her previous ult was perhaps one of the best examples of press Q to win, now it's really anything but that. Some aspects of the new ultimate are fairly simple, such as the chained healing and damage boost beams, but others offer much more room to perfect and master. For example, being able to fly independently and self-heal, even while taking damage, lets her venture into much more dangerous and previously unreachable locations. She almost becomes a whole new hero now during her ultimate, and it'll be really interesting to see what some people can do with this kind of new hero power. Of course, there were a lot of people who firmly believed that Mercy was fine before this rework, and loved playing her just the way she was. And I don't want to discredit these people's opinions, as people have the right to enjoy playing heroes however they want. If they prefer a hero one way or another, then more power to them. However, in terms of what's best for the game overall and the player base as a whole, this change is a very good thing. Especially given the Mercy player stereotype, which has been around for so long at this point, it'll be great to see this hero get reworked into a more engaging and hopefully appealing playstyle. Perhaps it could even get more people to play support heroes as a whole, because Lord Jeff knows that's what we need most right about now. Anyways, now let's move on to D.Va. D.Va has had a long history of tweaks and changes, most of which revolved around her defense matrix. Originally, it was a generic ability that once used, would go on a set 10-second cooldown. The issue with this, however, was that it was almost worthless against an experienced opponent. All the enemy had to do was bait it out in some way, and then they had 10 whole seconds of free reign to fire off any ability or ultimate that they so desired, while you were defenseless. It was so bad that back then, D.Va had a drastically lower play percentage than the other tanks, and arguably she was one of the worst heroes in the game. That's why they added the ability's resource meter. This allowed for D.Va players to use it more frequently, so long as they were only using up the meter in fair moderation. This made the ability much more versatile, and gave birth to what has now become one of the most controversial abilities in Overwatch. Being a D.Va main personally, I long stood on the side of Defense Matrix being a balanced ability, despite how many people claimed it to be OP. When playing against enemy D.Vas, I was fully aware of its limitations, and how to work around it in its 4-second uptime. However, my opinion changed after trying out the new D.Va, which made it clear to me that, even with only 2 seconds of uptime, Defense Matrix could still be quite powerful in the right hands. The real issue with it was never that it could entirely negate some ultimates, but rather that it could just be active way too frequently. Eating something like Zarya's Graviton was too easy to pull off when you could toggle it on for that long. After the past resource meter buff, the power of Defense Matrix quickly began to completely redefine how the hero got played, which is the biggest reason that Blizzard has gone through with giving her such a radical rework now. When the game first launched, D.Va was a dive and flanking based hero. She was designed to dive onto an enemy target, eliminate them, and then get out. Given her large health and armor pool and high mobility, she could survive taking a lot of damage while doing this. She was meant to be played aggressively and to constantly be harassing the enemy. This was how she served as a tank. Her presence on a point or in the backline demanded attention from the enemy, thus giving the DPS and supports on her team more room to work. However, after her defense matrix buff, which was then followed by an armor reduction, she became incredibly dependent on defense matrix simply to survive. And this is where her playstyle began to change. Players pretty quickly began focusing the way they played D.Va less around her dive potential and more around her damage negation. Of course, she still excelled at diving and thus has continually been used in dive comps, but overall, she was too easily used as just a shield for her team, especially when it came to countering enemy ultimates. Basically, she became the new Reinhardt, and was a major factor in why he hasn't been seeing much playtime recently. While you could argue that there isn't a problem with a hero being played in whatever way contributes to the team, there is one big issue with what happened to D.Va. She became something that Blizzard didn't want. She was designed to be an aggressive, diving harasser, but that's not how the average person began playing her. It wasn't because the players didn't like the dive playstyle, but because she worked too well as just a basic team shield. This is why Blizzard made these changes. Being able to fire while boosting, along with the new micro missiles ability, make her much better at being able to deal spike damage on a target as she dives onto it. The reduction of defense matrix uptime limits her ability to just stand there and absorb damage, so now she'll have to focus more on her own mobility in order to survive. And while doing this, she won't be able to directly shield her team nearly as well, meaning she'll have to be played as a harasser once again in order to be a useful teammate. There's no doubt that this will cause a huge upset in the player base, as players are going to have to adjust in order to continue playing her well. This is a step back for D.Va, not in terms of her balance or usefulness, but in how she's played. This rework pushes her back into the role she originally had, just as Blizzard intended. But, like Mercy and every other hero who gets massively reworked, it'll take a bit of time to see how well these changes actually play out. Even if they push her back into her intended role in the game, there's still the possibility of balance issues. One thing to keep in mind though, is that a lot of people will likely hate these changes, at least at first. Given how dependent D.Va had become on her defense matrix ability, it'll take time for players to relearn her new playstyle. So if you're playing her for yourself and are trying to find the best way to use her in her new state, just keep in mind that this rework was done to change how she was played, not to give her a nerf or a buff. As Overwatch developer Jeff Goodman mentioned, this change is meant to nerf defense matrix as an ability, but not D.Va as a hero. Anyways, hopefully this video has helped you to understand why Blizzard has so drastically changed these two heroes, and given you the right mindset for playing them in their new states. If you're interested in learning even more about how to use them, then I've already made a basic guide for the new D.Va, which you can find a link to on screen. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and be sure to leave a comment below with your thoughts about these changes, and what they'll do for both the heroes themselves, and the game as a whole. I'd appreciate you hitting the like button if you enjoyed the video, and feel free to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit the bell icon to keep up with all my future content. This is Mercy and Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.